talking about ourselves. I know leaders when I see them. I also know idiots when I see them. You can imagine the combination of both of them, the disaster it is. If you are a leader and an idiot, it's a disaster, absolute disaster. It is even worse, even more dangerous, if the very people who hold the power in their hands decide that they will be manipulated and played around by idiots.
The same principle applies to flying business class with university money, having bodyguards, a chef, and many other things. I'm sure you know I rejected all of them. I refused to have a driver, to have a bodyguard, even to fly business class. People who reported to me were not so impressed because if I don't fly business class, how can they? But I don't need business class to feel important or to show that I'm important. I'm important, and I know I'm fabulous. Business class is not going to add anything. Imagine going to the US, 169,000 rands on business class to New York, and it's more than fees for 1 year with rest for one student. Imagine. I mean, how many times do I go to the US? How many students could I cover for the damn whole year? So I said, no, we would go to a meeting somewhere on the continent, all the vice chancellors of this country, and they all fly business class. And so they all come with chauffeurs and E-classes and their drivers, right? I would ask for a lift from them. But we get into the flight, and the air hostesses say, ha, ha. They all stop at business, and I go to economy. But nobody wants to hear anything from them. Everybody wants to know what I am thinking. And that's more important than being seen to be important.
When you look at the history of football, you see that it's a tool that's been used by certain people to say, we are superior, you guys are inferior. The World Cup, Africa is always given the crumbs. The World Cup began in 1930. It has been an exclusive club of Europe and South America. Other teams, other continents are just put there for decoration. How many continents have won the World Cup? It's just those two continents. It is because the whole thing is rigged towards those two continents. Africa with 54 countries having until the last World Cup just 5 representatives. But South America with just 10 countries have been represented in at least the last 3-4 World Cups by 6. Europe always gets the largest share of the cake, sometimes 14, sometimes 15. Football has been used and is still being used as a tool to keep Africa down. It's still the Caucasian race telling the rest of the world, this is where you belong. What right does Europe have to have more share of the cake than Africa? What is a World Cup without Africa? We Africans need to know what powers we have and how to use it as leverage in everything, whether it's in politics, whether it's in economics, whether it's in sports. Let them organize their World Cup without Africa and see if there's going to be any kind of joy. The FIFA has decided they're going to organize a World Cup for clubs. And even now you see how everything is rigged towards Europe. There are 32 teams there. And how many does Europe get? 12. How much does Africa get? 4. You cannot start a World Cup for clubs with 32 countries and give Africa just 4 places and give Europe already 12. And then you're going to say, why has Africa never won it? Yeah, there are 12 of you against 4 of us. We as Africans need to start demanding and taking things that are ours. Don't use us to legitimize your discrimination. Don't use us to legitimize your nonsense. We are tired.
Allow me to acknowledge the historical struggle of the Maroons in Jamaica, the Haitian revolutionaries, our ancestors who perished in their millions in the ocean and in the middle corridors. Let me acknowledge the women of Africa who bravely resisted enslavement, colonization, and apartheid. Allow me to acknowledge the nameless comrades, because Sankara we know, Machel we know, Mandela we know, Sekou Touré we know, but the gallant fight against immiseration, emasculation, dehumanization was carried out by nameless, faceless women for whom this struggle is a redemption song. Wherever they rest, let them hear that their great-grandchildren have arisen to fight on. King Leopold's reign, 1885 to 1908. Belgium's exploitation of the Congo led to the deaths of 10 to 15 million people who were in forced labor, mutilation, and mass killings, including chopping of limbs. If you are in this room and you want to tell me that 1908 is so far, too long ago for you to remember the loss of 10 to 15 million African lives, why do we remember the First World War? I don't have time to go into the statistics of why people who look like most of you in this room are the highest population of imprisoned people in the world. Remember what Hegel says, the native is in everything but vice, an infant. So this criminalization of black identity explains why people panic when you walk into a shop. But some people were exiled, and others had their heads decapitated, including Chief Chingaira from Zimbabwe, and others whose heads were taken to the British museums and remain there today. And the British say they can't return because their laws do not allow the return of human remains. As late as 1958, there were human zoos in Europe, in Belgium, and in Paris, where they kept black children in those zoos. The last one, 1958, and in Germany and in the United States. So not only were you economically disadvantaged, physically and psychologically punished, you were socially ostracized. They said black people, Africans, are dirty. And yet it is Africans and black people who were their nannies looking after their children, feeding them, teaching them to walk, to talk, and to write. And they said you were lazy, and yet I do not recall any mine that sent thousands of white people under the mine in South Africa, in the Congo, or elsewhere. How did lazy people, for free, produce so much wealth that built the comfort for which our people are being asked to be grateful?
So when you break my leg, one of my legs, and you say like, let's run 100 meters, but I start with a broken leg, and you are at the finishing line like 3 minutes before me, and you say, hey, but see, you cannot run. Yeah, I'm starting from the point of a disadvantage. So a lot of Africans blame their leaders for a lot of things, corruption and all of that. Who brought corruption to Africa? And what's corruption when you compare to what is happening in broad daylight here? What happens in your face, but you don't use that to say the Dutch society is corrupt, the German society is corrupt. In terms of real numbers, there is more, like 100 times more corruption in Europe than in Africa. When they say corruption, I think of like the North-South line in Amsterdam, 9.5 kilometers. It was going to cost $500 million. It ended up costing about $9 billion whatever. Where did all that money go? We're talking about COVID last year with one guy who was supposed to give everybody masks for free, made millions and millions, conniving with people in the health ministry. The health minister and awarding contracts to their friends. We talk of a lot of things as if they are not happening here. And that is the thing. It's propaganda that we have been brought up to believe. So if you convert those money into any African currency, that leader will be taken out of office.
This is a wake-up call to the African leaders to take inventory of what is really happening in their countries. Do they really need the peanuts that are coming in as aid? You have your natural resources. You have everything you need to take care of your people. Why do you continue to be beggars? You take, for example, cocoa. Majority of the cocoa coming out of the world comes from West Africa, and yet it's only recently that African nations were allowed to add value to their cocoa. President Traore is standing up. He is saying the natural resources in Burkina Faso, they belong to the people of Burkina Faso. Niger is doing the same thing. Mali is doing the same thing. Every leader must look at what's happening in the Sahel nations to say, like anybody else, you must take care of your people. You see, it takes two to tango. If President Trump does not want a relationship with Africa, Africans shouldn't be begging for it. Africans must take a position and protect their turf. China wants to come and exploit Africa, they'll get away with it to the extent that Africans allow them. I think that what was done to brainwash black people around the world, long before they even left Africa, we are still suffering from that legacy of colonization, the legacy of slavery, where the people in power, they themselves don't believe they can do it. We still have leaders who believe you can't make it unless you're working with white people. We have individuals who think only something brought in by white people is what's likely to succeed. With that kind of mentality, it is a very difficult battle. Our battle to succeed, to unite as the African continent, it is a battle of the mind.
We must never succumb to pressure of America. America has never helped us with anything, even during apartheid. They cannot threaten us now with sanctions. Everywhere else America goes, you must know they never go to help those people. They go to destabilize those countries. They did the same thing in Libya. They did the same thing in Iraq. They did the same thing in Afghanistan. Now they want to come to South Africa and destabilize it. We must unite against American imperialism and colonialism. We must not be intimidated by Elon Musk and everybody who stands with him. Today, we are told that we are violating property rights when we demand our land from people who call themselves Europeans just 30 years ago. Let us never forget that the USA classified our freedom fighters as terrorists. The CIA assisted in the capture of Nelson Mandela in 1962, handing him over to the apartheid regime. Whether Donald Trump's like it or not, we are going to fight for the return of the land in South Africa.
USAID has been the front for all terrorism. ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab, Boko Haram, the jihadists in the Sahel region, they're all funded by CIA. And France was funding them, training them, giving them weapons.
You are saying USAID is the one causing all the trouble, but they are there also saying we are fighting all this trouble.
No, they're never fighting. They keep the terrorists at bay. They train them more. They feed them. It's like you have a lion and you chain that lion and you say to the people, hey, I'm the zookeeper. I'm just keeping this lion. I'm fighting this lion. But in fact, you're not fighting the lion. You're just feeding the lion. You're making the lion fast, fat, and strong. And when the puppet doesn't agree with you, or when the puppet is disposed by its people, what you do is you release the lion on them. So that's what they do.
Deep.
Yeah, that's what they do. One of the most renowned that the whole world awakened to this reality is Taliban. America spent 3 trillion and 20 years fighting Taliban to just leave the Taliban to take Afghanistan. So these people, they don't fight. These terrorists, these are their arms. These are their pawns in the chessboard. And they can strike you with them too. They keep the rebels also. The rebels are also theirs. So even now, we don't know M23. We're just saying that it's Rwanda, is that or that. Maybe the order came from the above to release them on Eastern Goma to create more chaos.
Yeah, so because they've been dormant for a long time.
Yeah,
and then
they just rise to
now
power.
They just are taking over everything.
Yeah. There is a thin line between colonialization and neo-colonization when it comes to how our resources are refined, how our resources are processed. Pretty good example, Belgium, the country who has the best chocolate. I like to always use that as an example.
Is that Belgium or is it Switzerland that has the best chocolate?
They can fight about it, but they both don't have cacao tree. That's what we know. They have no one cocoa tree in their countries. So where does that come from? It comes from Ghana, it comes from Cote d'Ivoire, it comes from other African country nations, but then
and some in South America.
In South America, the global South in general. So when the resources come back, when the finished chocolate comes back, the farmer who grew all those can't even afford to buy it. So that's what neocolonialism is. Antwerp, my city where I live, is the capital city of diamonds, but all those diamonds are stolen from Congo or Liberia or Sierra Leone.
Does Belgium have a diamond mine?
No,
Antwerp?
They don't. They don't have any resources worth value. I don't even know. Really hard to say what resources Belgium has, but they like to say we are the world's diamond center, or we have the best chocolate. Why don't African leaders, they've been giving this cacao seeds or cacao plantation to the Europeans, all the money that they have gained from that cacao selling, why don't they build their own factories?
I can say that in my life, being a mother has been the greatest gift that I've been given. It seems to me that motherhood is also a very rich subject, just in very literary terms. There's just so much about being a mother, and the way that society thinks of motherhood, with different societies think of it. America seems very conflicted on what motherhood should be.
Yes.
I remember when I came to the US many years ago, and there was a conversation in my college that people were having, and one of them said about a woman, they said she has a nanny. And I realized that this was a bad thing in their minds. I mean, so they were criticizing a woman for having a nanny. And I had come from Nigeria, where, the whole idea of being a mother is that it takes a village. Yep. You have your baby, your relatives come. For Igbo people, your mother comes for the first, sometimes 40 days in different parts of Igbo land. You're actually not supposed to do anything. You're supposed to just lie in bed, and they're cooking you this wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And the cousins and aunties coming to help
Pepper
you.
soup, yeah.
Yes. And then and I just remember being struck by that. She has a nanny. Yeah. Which was an insult. And and then they started saying, why should someone else raise her child? What about the nanny? She has her children too. And I was thinking, have you asked the nanny? I mean, it's a joke. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it also made me think about the American view of motherhood, which I think is partly what can weigh women down.
Yeah.
I mean, this idea that you're supposed to do everything alone. And that even to have help, if you're fortunate enough to have help, becomes a judgment on you.
Yes, yeah.
And it's also a society that's not structured to support motherhood. The way that the workplace is structured does not support motherhood at all.
We need to see prominent Pan-Africanists, those who are vocal about unity, independence, and empowerment, leading the charge in reclaiming African names. Many of today's outspoken leaders thinkers and public figures still carry Christian or Islamic names, names that were not part of their original African identity. Professor Patrick Lumumba, Julius Malema, Joshua Mapunga, Ibrahim Traore, Ousmane Sonko, Brian Kagoro, are their names a true reflection of their cultural heritage? Shouldn't they, along with other modern-day Pan-Africanists, start a movement to drop the European and Islamic names and lead by example? And when our leaders are still going by names like William Ruto, Cyril Ramaphosa, Samia Suluhu Hassan, Paul Kagame, Felix Antoine Tshisekedi, Hassan Sheikh Mohammed, what do Felix, Hassan, Samia, Cyril mean in the African context? What you are subtly saying is that those European and Middle Eastern identities are superior to your African identity. When Europeans go to Africa or come in contact with Africans, they don't suddenly start answering to names like Kwame or Thabo. They keep their original names, and people respect that. Why then should Africans be expected to adapt their names to fit European norms? If we can pronounce Papadopoulos or Nebuchadnezzar, they should be able to pronounce Anikulapo or Kambaraje. If we are serious about empowering Africa, uniting the continent and telling our own stories, then our leaders, activists and public figures need to lead by example. When Africans take ownership of their names, they are not just taking back their cultural heritage, they are also sending a clear message. We are not merely the sum of foreign influences upon us. We are Africans. There's no reason why an African man should walk into a classroom and have to answer John when his name, Kwabena, has meaning, history, and pride. That name connects him to his ancestors and to a culture that European names can never replace. This doesn't mean rejecting other cultures or religions. It means understanding that our names are a reflection of our pride, our history, our heritage.
We are in a state capture situation. Our country has been taken hostage by a criminal enterprise gang that are in our legislature, in our executive, and unfortunately today in our judiciary. Because it is, don't clap for me, I don't want claps. I didn't come to get any claps. We actually should have ashes on our foreheads and grieve a country that continues to backslide with every electoral cycle. There's nothing to clap about. We should be in mourning. One of the things we identify as the greatest adverse impact of corruption is it attains the form of the effect of cancer on a society. And you all know, when the word cancer is used, what is the next thing people think about? They think about that. Nigeria is in a state of metastasized cancer of corruption. Corruption as a cancer can kill all of us. It infests the education sector, infests the health sector, infests public works and infrastructure. Oh, tell me about it. There's a thing called the Lagos Coastal Road Project. A project that did not go through any form of public procurement. A project that has all kinds of conflict of interest written over it. It's being implemented. It's the costliest ever allocation of Nigerian public treasury to a project. You hardly find boardrooms where people are saying Nigeria is #1 on my list. in most of the world today. Because boardrooms are skittish to corruption. Is it therefore a surprise that 133 million Nigerians are stuck in multidimensional poverty, at least 60% of our population? Another 40.2% are stuck in extreme poverty. Why? Because corruption makes economic growth difficult.
The media plays a big role by saying Africa is not safe, Africa is poor, Africa is not stable, we cannot invest here. But if Africa was dangerous and poor and not safe, your corporations are here from 1960s. Especially after colonization finished, these new corporations that came in are still there, and they're still profiting, like one of the biggest gold mining, Barrick Golds from Canada, and they have enriched themselves, they have enriched their countries. They don't pay taxes to the African country governments because they bribe the African leaders also. This is not only, the corporations. I forgot the biggest actors in here. Surprise! Our own leaders, and they're sending their children to these big schools like Harvard, and they're buying villas in Dubai, in France, southern France, in Monaco. Our leaders are basically, they sold out. And as much as we can be mad at the white man who's robbing us, we should be mad and working to get rid of those leaders who are blindfolding us, holding our mouth not to speak, and holding our ears not to hear when we are trying to awaken our society and tell them, hey, we're not poor, we're very wealthy, but it's just that we are on a long scene in a movie where we're being robbed. It's been like generations after generations, and to be honest, there's in every race, Africans, Europeans, Latin Americans, Southeast Asia, there is in every society there is a greedy person who would sell out their own people. So it's not only common to Africans. European governments are also corrupt, but at least they give some pieces back to their society. But in Africa, they don't even give you crumbs. They're hoarders. So the Nigerian general, Kenya, Uganda, I hope you're listening. I hope you follow the footsteps of Ibrahim Traore. I hope you guys take over the power and give back to the people. Power to the people.
You are actually saying we have to topple democracy.
Yes, we have to topple and topple and topple and topple. Like Trump said, dig, you remember? Africa has to topple and topple and topple all these puppets. Because these are actually, for me, the people that I blame. Not the white person who's coming here to rob us, or the Western corporations that are coming to destroy our environmental resources, our environment. No, it's our leaders. So the more we topple them, the more countries will unite, the more alliances we will form. And once Congo is free, the heart of Africa is free. Congo is like the chase where you go to the checkmate. So the moment we checkmate in Congo, the economic freedom fighters coming from the south, the Sahel coming from the north, the eastern people rising, the western rising, and we all meet up in Congo, and then we raise the one flag of Africa in the heart of Congo. That is my dream. That is the revolution we need. We need the leaders to topple. That's my message, really. That's what we need. And maybe some of you educated people join the military so you can topple like Burkina Faso did Ibrahim Traore, So really, honestly, there is no any other way.
So you think if this spreads like wildfire to other parts of Africa, Africa will be
under
better?
One flag, under one currency, under one leader, under one army.
Do you see whoever the president is of Egypt saying, now I'm just going to be a governor of a province in Africa?
Topple.
If there are any members of any administration of an African country that are not Pan-Africanist, that don't think like Pan-Africanist, that are not awoken enough, that are still afraid of white people, to the heads of states, I say, get rid of them. Because if you send those individuals who are still asleep, who are still colonized, they're the ones who are going to think whatever deal is brought to us by the West is the deal that we should accept. This moment is calling for Pan-Africanism. This moment is calling for leadership that says we have an opportunity for equitable trade with other nations around the world. We have an opportunity to begin to lead without outside interference. Let's not miss this opportunity. Get rid of your government administration members that are not Pan-African, because they will not make good negotiators for you. This moment should have been here decades ago after World War II. But because Europe had destroyed itself, they put in systems to steal from the developing nations, especially Africa, to rescue Europe. President Trump, for the Africans, he is creating that opportunity. So if African leaders miss out on that opportunity and get lost in the bravado, the loss is yours. You owe it to the people. Come to the table. Here is an opportunity to reclaim your natural resources for the benefit of your people. President Trump is negotiating the best deal that he can for his people. So are we going to accept and appreciate this moment for what it is? This is what we have wanted. We don't want aid, we want trade. Now, when we go to the negotiating table, the question then becomes, Africa, are you ready to put your best foot forward? Africa, have you assembled the best and the brightest negotiators that your country has? Africa, are you ready to beneficiate from your natural resources in a manner that you have never been allowed to do? This is the moment. You see, you have to demand to be equal. But if you go to the negotiating table and you're scared and you are ready to accept peanuts, that's exactly what you're going to get. President Trump is not going to come in and say, well, listen, we're going to be 50-50. No, you have to demand it. He's going to come in and say, I want 90% of your minerals. And if you're stupid enough to accept it, then the joke is on you. President Trump is saying America first. African leaders must all say their countries first. Go to the negotiating table as equals.
Do you know a bit or a lot about Africa?
I think I know a bit.
How many?
A little bit.
Do you know anything at all about Africa?
Of course.
How many countries are there in Africa?
Countries, well.
Oh wow! Now you asked me something. Wow, it's long. Yeah, but it's a long time ago. Wow.
That's a very good question. I can't even count the number. I cannot.
Wild guess.
Around
about 26. Not really.
Can you make a wild guess?
60.
I think more than 30.
More than 30.
More than 30 countries.
Okay.
146.
146?
150.
150?
124.
120. Wow, that's a very huge continent.
I don't know.
Okay.
I've read it before, but I've lost the count.
Dear African people, here is a question more of us must ask, and ask loudly, because some Westerners keep saying it and we keep believing it. Did the colonialists really build Africa? Or did Africans do the hard labor while the colonial power stood by and watched while extracting the wealth? Roads, railroads, ports, and bridges were not built for Africans. They were built to export raw materials, minerals, rubbers, cocoa, gold to Europe. The labor was African. The sweat was African. The land was African. The lives lost were Africans. And yes, colonialists and their descendants claim the credit. And today, many still repeat the lie that Europe developed Africa. Let us be clear. Africa built under colonialism was not built for Africans. What was built for the benefit of those who colonized Africa. Africans were the backbone of every brick laid and every field harvested.
I feel that the colonial legacy of in Africa is still being maintained within education systems. And so for me, we can only start to make a very strong impact on the mentality of the next generation of young Africans when we expose them to a different experience, an experience that doesn't tell them every day that they are inferior, an experience that doesn't show them every single day that they are second or third class citizens of the world, but actually to educate them holistically, to understand that they are some of the oldest people on this planet, the traditions are some of the oldest on this planet, but not only that we are kind of these archaic historical museum pieces, but that we are actually the creators of the future. We are the population who have the youngest youth on this in terms of demographics. We are also undoubtedly the continent that provides and produces pretty much most of the world's resources. So when we are continuing to have a mentality that always defaults to being somebody that needs to be supported or helped or aided by the West, we cannot be surprised that we see the outcomes that we do. So what I'm trying to do is create a new education system that becomes a normal way of life for young people from a young age. We take students from the age of 8 and graduate them by 18 to 21. They can go through to senior as well. And throughout that time, they live every day a reality and a normal existence that they understand and are taught the skills to succeed within their country, given the means to set up their own businesses, are given the means and the understanding of the skills of how to develop their own industries. My main mission is to contribute to economic development, because if we don't do that, we can never actually be independent as nations.
If you tell people like, yeah, I went backpacking, and they will say like, oh, in Southeast Asia, and it's like, no, to West Africa, and they're like, where is that? Like, what did you do there? Like, and sometimes I ask like, what do you think is there? And they're like, just a lot of sand. Like, people can ask such stupid questions, like, did they have enough water? Like, do they have water?
Our governments right now don't help with, educating people properly. There's a lot of propaganda, there's a lot of racism, a lot of fascism, Zionism, etc. But me, I want to stay positive, and from what I've seen, like from this little circle of people that I know, the circle is getting bigger. And the more people get informed, and the more people get curious and more open to learn more. So I think it's just a matter of keeping on talking and keeping on, trying to stay informed. There are some people that are starting to be more open, and that gives a bit hope, like compared to years ago,
One big part of the problem is that people still think that it's dangerous to travel to Africa, or have backward views on the development, or these kind of things. With the right information, I think people would have a very different opinion, but a lot of people are, not critical in their thinking.
I can talk about Europe generally, even though, I grew up in Italy, so that's what I know most from. But I think education in general is not good, and all the governments are cutting like more and more money from education to keep us uneducated and misinformed through the media controlled by the governments. When people are educated, people are able to form opinions, and then they will rebel for their rights, for the rights of other people. So it's easier to just keep people uneducated and misinformed.
I do know that, of course, the history books are written from the perspective, the Western European perspective, and they're not being updated and changed enough. So, of course, that's a big part of the problem. Like the Golden Age in the Netherlands, which was the age of slavery, it's still called the Golden Age.
there's no need to ease any threat from the USA. It doesn't cause me any pain. Donald Trump is not God. His term is coming to an end after 4 years. And a new president who's sober, who reads, will take over and understand what are the issues. The argument that, no, if we do a borderless Africa, those people are going to come here. We were borderless Africa at some point before we were cut into pieces. But those people remained in their countries. They never came here. They say people come here because we are rich. They will want the richness of South Africa. Gauteng compared to Limpopo is very rich. But I've not seen empty houses in Limpopo. That people are leaving Limpopo, going to stay in Gauteng because there are more greener pastures there. It is a threat to imperialism, which benefit out of the exploitation of the mineral resources of South Africa. The problem is our leaders.
I see young people, whenever there are problems in the country, they want to run away and go abroad. They go to Europe, they go to Canada, they go to America, wherever. And I used to say, first of all, there will always be problems in any country, and there are more problems probably in our continent than others. But I used to tell them, instead of running away and going abroad and leaving your country, let's work together and find a way to resolve our problems, because there are problems everywhere. But at the same time, I used to tell them, I said, in fact, I can predict that in a short time, there will be, where you are going, they will be chasing you back to where you came from. That's about nearly 15 years ago. Now, I think I have been vindicated. So I'm saying this to remind us that there are problems everywhere. In Africa, in Rwanda, there are problems. There's no question about it. We need to address those problems. But we would rather concentrate on dealing with our problems than running away from them. So the young people, my simple message to you is, let's not run away from problems. Because even where you run to, you will find problems. Maybe more problems. And especially when they send you back where you came from. So, but alongside that, young people find a purpose, know there are going to be problems, try and fail, but don't fail to try. I thank you.
Wow.
The global north today thinks that the most valuable and highest priced food is something called organic food. And let me interpret it for you, because you may be lost in trying to find a complex Harvard, Yale, or Oxford solution to this. Organic food is the food you grew up eating in your village. There is no witchcraft that surpasses witchcraft that tells somebody who holds 50% of the world's deposit in critical raw minerals, who holds the largest supply of global gold, which is the most assured denominator of global currency, that persuade that person that they are so poor, they have to abandon the lands in which the gold and the cobalt, the lithium and etc. live, and rush through oceans and die going to care. Africans generously, lavishly give away their data. It's unbelievable. Africans don't trust each other with regards to elections. They find a European firm and say, come and develop our biometric voting system. In the agreement, they actually have no prohibitions on the use of that data. That European firm or American firm or Israeli firm or whatever, Chinese firm, goes away, it is the data for the entire voting public, which means the entire income earning public.
I was just talking to one of my girlfriends, and we basically came to the same conclusion. Our African men, when they are here, they will expect to treat us the way they treat us when we were back home. Mm-hmm. But when they are with the white ladies, they treat them better than the way they treat us. They, like, you will see, even like, I'm gonna tell you that you will see someone will be like, oh, opening the doors, being a gentleman, you know, touchy, all that, you know. But hey, see a man with an African woman. My friend, you will even see the man is there. The woman is here. And you're like, hey, what is happening? Like, yeah, there's no lovey-dovey. And then you see them with the other side. You're like, okay. So there's this double standards, so to say. And it's like, it's something I noticed, my friend noticed, and not only me, because it's something like we ask each other. I've asked a couple of ladies, like, do you see that or you don't? They're like, hey girl, that's why I don't date my people here. I would rather date European because I know they're gonna treat me better more than the way I'm gonna be treated with someone from my own, my own place.
This thing about mental enslavement is deep and it's real.
Yeah, it is.
People who will treat in Europe their fellow black people like shit.
Facts.
And treat Europeans like they are still God when that European is not feeding you. It's deep, this mental slavery that we have been subjected to. So what have you done as a university graduate for work in Germany?
Oh,
let's start counting.
I have washed dishes in restaurants.
Wash dishes in restaurants. That's what you went to university to do. What else?
Oh, mamma mia.
Yeah.
And of course,
don't be shy.
I'm not shy. I'm just laughing because all these experiences, they're just making me like, yay. I have like probably worked as a help.
As a help?
Yeah.
Did you work as a cleaner somewhere?
I haven't worked as a cleaner.
Okay.
But when I was doing the helping thing, taking care of kids, other people's kids, yeah, I did that.
With your university degree?
With my university degree. And I went to start wiping poo-poo. Nyash, wiping. And like it's funny when you're doing all these jobs and then someone back at home is just like sitting and being like, hey, someone will send me money. I remember one time, one of my colleagues I was working with back at home, he was like, oh, today I'm calling all my friends who are abroad to send me at least €20 or $20. I need to drink today. I need to party. I saw red. Yeah. I saw red because I was like, boy, do you even know what I'm doing for a living for me to be able to earn this money? Do you even know?
The worst thing colonialism did isn't just, plundering natural resources. It's teaching you to detest that which is yours. That's actually, I think, the most, and of course, many of us manage to overcome that, but there's still this idea that news that comes from abroad is likely to be true. Because, there isn't much of a difference between Nigeria and the US now. Let's be honest. Yes. And I can tell you seriously, Michelle, I feel much safer in Lagos. I've been away the whole summer. I was in Lagos and I came back, and yesterday was the first time I was coming into DC, and I wasn't sure what to expect because I'd heard in the news that suddenly that the National Guard is in DC, and I wasn't sure. I was thinking, are we going to be stopped on the streets? Do you have to get? It's just a strange thing, and I did not think I would ever be in a place where I would feel a kind of anxiety about coming into a city I love, Washington, D.C., but this is how I felt. I don't feel that way about going to Lagos, right? So it's really, in a way, it's living in two countries that are very different, but also increasingly similar. Because there's a strain of just knowing that you have an unreliable leadership that
that can take decisions that have consequences for you in a way that is not good. I'm very animated by all of the things that happened on the continent of Africa that are barely known to the descendants of the perpetrators. And I think they should know, right? I mean, it's important because when we have conversations about Africa's present, we cannot pretend as though things fell from the sky. Things happen to make Africa the way it is. And so we cannot talk about Guinea today and not talk about how the French government actually, I mean, people, grown men, sat down and decided in the way that thin-skinned, fragile-egoed men do all the time, because this was just a reaction to being rebuffed. They could have just said, okay, Guinea, bye-bye. But Guinea had natural resources. Guinea doesn't want to be part of your stupid little party. And so you decide to destroy the economy. If that is the starting point for a country that's just, being colonized, how do we expect that country to thrive? This is the same thing about so many countries on the continent that survived dictatorships because colonialism was a dictatorship. And somehow we're supposed to have then magically blossomed into democracies. And then you have, talking heads in Europe saying, oh, Africa, democracy, terrible. Yeah, because it came from colonization that was authoritarian. So I just think that it's not about excusing bad leadership, which, Africa has. But also, America also now has. America now has an African big man dictator. But really, it's simply to say that it is important that we all be students of history, especially when it comes to the African continent. And I don't know how many Africans are here, but we all know the jollof rice. There's a serious jollof rice fight on the west coast of Africa. I hope Kenyans and South Africans know you're not part of this. And so, Ghana is like our little sibling. And then you have Ghanaians saying, jollof rice is better than Nigerian jollof rice. And I'm like, what? So, no, this is a very serious matter. Nigerians quite often have an unearned arrogance. We think we're better than other Africans for no reason. Okay. I think food is really important. I love food. But I think food is a way of getting into even just how people think of one another. Right? I think with food, we can let's talk about European tribalism. We can talk about the French, and the French attitude to food tells us all we need to know about their arrogance, which... No, this is true. Which is also an unearned arrogance. There is no reason for the French to be so arrogant. Yeah, and I say this with no apology. This is no longer you are no longer an 18th century world power. You need to. I'm reminded of a conversation I eavesdropped on. An African, not a Nigerian, was talking about somebody who had said there are no skyscrapers in major African cities. And this person got very upset and said, there's skyscrapers in Nairobi and in Lagos. And I remember listening to that and thinking, the problem with this is that somehow this African had accepted that skyscrapers should be the basis on which to measure development. We need stories so that we can resist the trap of allowing our aspirations as Africans to be shaped by others. Today, African children go to elite boarding schools and learn about Greek mythology. But what is the difference between Persephone, the Greek goddess of planting seeds, and Allah, the Igbo goddess of land? It is merely that one story has been told well and the other has not. It is through stories that we can turn our myths into memory.
Africa's time has come, and its turn has come. Unlike the first time of Pan-Africanism, Britain, France, and the United States can't stop it this time, because Pan-Africanism was stopped from the outside, not from the inside. It was stopped by a bullet in the head of Patrice Lumumba. It was stopped by repeated overthrows by the CIA and MI6, and it cannot happen anymore. They don't have the power, they don't have the space, and Africa can prevent it. So we need this Africa-wide investment program that invests first in the young people. This vast population increase is so promising if you invest in the skills of the young people. I believe that by 2050, Africa will be a high-income region. It will be a successful and growing region. It will be a region of peace, and it will be looked to throughout the world for partnership and for innovative solutions.
The Constitutional Court is not above the Constitution. It's a subject of the Constitution. Its existence comes from the Constitution itself. It is not the Constitutional Court that established the Constitution. It is the Constitution that established the Constitutional Court. It is the Constitution that allowed the independence of the judiciary and that judges must act without fear or favor. When they address each other, they say, a learned friend, a learned friend. Learned, you can't produce a judgment. What did you learn? There were dollars in Palapam. There is no secret. Everybody has agreed, including Ramaphosa. He said there were dollars in Palapam. Then he said he put the dollars in the sofa because the safe was not safe. How can the safe not be safe? Because the job of the safe is to be safe. How can the sofa be more safe than the safe itself? We are told they were buying buffaloes. The buffalo, there is no buffalo that left South Africa. How can you buy the goods with so much money and leave it here in South Africa? Motion of no confidence. If we pass motion of no confidence against Ramaphosa, he's going to get his salary for the rest of his life. He's going to get his benefits for the rest of his life. But if we impeach him, impeachment means he gets removed as a president and he loses all the benefits, including the salary. That is what we want. For this man, he has eaten enough. He can't go home and still eat our money. He must go home empty-handed and continue to eat his dollars outside the office of the president, outside government of the Republic of South Africa. The lower courts, the high courts, are demanded that once they've heard the matter and concluded the matter, they must release their judgment within 3 months. If you say the lower ones can take 3 months, you must take 2 months to show them that you are leading by example and they must follow your example.
Every human being on earth came from Africa, but those of us who more recently are descendants of Africans, I think it's really important to know that where you find yourself now in the world, it's really important not to apologize for taking up space there. It's yours. Right? It's important to remember that the marginalization is not it's the problem of the people who are marginalizing, not your problem. Right? There's nothing about being a descendant of Africa that makes you less worthy. Nothing. If anything, it makes you just a little bit more beautiful, I think.
Please enjoy your festive season. If you finish this festive season, you have never given your old clothes to someone deserving, you must know you are greedy. You're the most useless human being. If you still have clothes that you were wearing at high school in your wardrobe, and when you were young, when there are so many people without clothes, you are a problem. If you are going to be having festivities and a meal, if you can't give them some food, invite them over so you can share a meal with the poor of the poorest. Let's make it easy this festive season for the poor.
as they see other children shining and other children eating, their pain becomes even more. You lessen it. You have a problem with their parents, do not have problem with children. Never use children to fight battles. Let's make sure that these children are not subjected to trauma. Let's make sure that these children look to the future with a positive attitude because their neighbor was good to them. I am what I am because my neighbor and neighbors were good to me. And in return, I'm good to them. Let's be good because we don't know what those children of your neighbors are going to become. And when they become something else in future in society, they will remember you. Help those who cannot help you and do not write their names down because you must not remember them. When you remember them, it's because you want to enslave them. You want to make them your slaves and constantly remind them that you have once helped them. Do not do that. Let it be an enjoyable one, even in poverty, in suffering, in unemployment. There is a moment we need to pause and appreciate God for giving us life. Thank you very much.